Buy now, pay later is everywhere. And maybe you've seen it when you were buying a Sephora haul or deciding that, yes, you deserve to splurge on your DoorDash delivery. But is BNPL just a shiny new version of the old school layaway gamified for the TikTok generation? Or is it more dangerous given its omnipresent availability? Today, we're going to unpack it. I'm Sammi Cohen, and this is Social Currency, a podcast that unpacks the stories that are shaping business, culture, and the intersection of the two. Hi, and welcome back to Social Currency, where we break down the most interesting topics at the intersection of business, tech, and culture in a way that's accessible, entertaining, and sometimes a little spicy. And as always, if you have any ideas on topics for future episodes, always feel free to reach out to me. I read every DM and email, so I can promise that I will at least consider everything that's sent my way. And today we're diving into something that has fascinated me for a while now, and you've definitely come across this at some point. Buy now, pay later, or BNPL, has swept the world of online checkout buttons, making it possible to break down a $40 lipstick or a $200 air fryer in 4 easy payments. On the surface, it seems very accessible. There's zero interest and seemingly no strings attached. We're talking about a market worth billions of dollars, with players like Klarna, Afterpay, and Affirm grabbing headlines, partnerships, and yes, tens of billions of dollars from our collective bank balances. What does this trend say about America's culture of consumer spending? Is this a genuine tool for financial flexibility or a fast track to financial regret? So here's the roadmap for today's episode. First, I'll explain what BNPL really is. What happens when you hit that pay in 4 button? Then we'll go into why this has become so explosively popular, from a $20 sushi roll to a $1,000 TV. We'll dive into the potential risks and how BNPL is about to impact your credit score, for better or worse. And finally, I'll leave you with my unfiltered thoughts on whether or not you should trust BNPL with your next impulse purchase. So let's break this down first in plain English. Buy now, pay later is exactly what it sounds like. You make a purchase today, let's say that $180 pair of limited edition sneakers you absolutely needed, but instead of paying all at once, you split it out into smaller chunks. Most of these BNPL services, think Klarna, Affirm, Afterpay, even PayPal, let you break it down into 4 payments as long as you're going to pay it on time. It's kind of like a mini personal loan, except with fewer bank forms, no scary APR disclaimers in small print, and more pink logos with cutesy copywriting. The BNPL services industry had their best day ever on Cyber Monday in 2024, with consumers spending a record-breaking $991.2 million, according to Adobe Analytics. So I'd imagine that this year's Cyber Monday will very easily cross the $1 billion mark. And last year, BNPL spending in the US outpaced prior years with no signs of slowing down. Nowadays, you'll see BNPL as an option at checkout very often, from tiny direct-to-consumer skincare brands to mega retailers like Target. The checkout pitch is very seductive. Split this into 4 interest-free payments, and it feels safe, easy, and even smart. Here's what makes it so fascinating. BNPL is to payments as the one-click Amazon checkout is to e-commerce. Instead of making you stop and think, do I have $200 in my bank account to buy this product right now? BNPL tells your brain, hey, bestie, that's only $50 today. You have that much in your bank account now, so why don't you just buy it and you'll get the rest of the money to cover it later? And so for many shoppers, that mental math is very tempting. In fact, the Federal Reserve found that about 15% of American adults used a BNPL loan in 2024. So if you're wondering how these companies even make money, given that they pitch no interest, here's the trick. They charge the retailer a fee, a cut of the sale, for letting you finance the purchase. Retailers love it because people end up buying more stuff, of course. And if you don't pay on time, then come the so-called late fees, or sometimes these fees are dressed up in a cute little package and it's called something like a snooze fee. So these are basically modern day late payment penalties dressed up in cute little outfits. There are also other ways that these companies make money, including interest and data monetization. BNPL is essentially an old concept. Layaway plans have existed since your grandma's grandma, but updated with a frictionless user interface and seamless app integrations. Now, on the surface, this payment solution sounds like it's a win for consumers, right? A seamless, interest-free way to get what you want right now. But And there's always a but. The reason it's so easy to do this is exactly the same reason why BNPL can be so risky. All right, so let's talk about why BNPL has spread so quickly. First off, convenience. If there is one thing our modern economy worships, it's convenience. We want what we want right now with minimal barriers, minimal friction, and minimal adulting required. That's why Amazon has done so well. BNPL taps directly into that. You're shopping online, scrolling for that new pair of running shoes or that Dyson Airwrap you've convinced yourself is an investment purchase. You reach the checkout and there it is, a button telling you, hey, just split this into 4 easy payments, no interest, no worries. It's financial instant gratification with a side of moral permission. And honestly, that messaging hits hard, especially when everything else in our lives feels increasingly expensive, from rent to eggs to a bottle of sunscreen. Breaking down a $200 splurge into $50 segments feels so much easier to swallow. And then there's the influence factor. The rise of BNPL perfectly mirrors the rise of influencer culture and haul videos and how popular overconsumption has become. If you're scrolling through TikTok and watching creators do $600 Sephora hauls or unbox 4 pairs of Uggs in different colors, your brain can easily rationalize, well, if they can do it, why can't I? BNPL meets you in that emotional sweet spot where a purchase feels aspirational, not reckless. And the fintech companies know exactly how to package it so it feels fast, frictionless, and even aesthetic. There's also a bigger economic story here. Younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, have grown up with debt being so much more a part of their quote-unquote normal lives. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, Gen Z has an average of around $20,000 in student debt, which is 13% higher than millennials had. So debt doesn't seem scary to them. It's already a part of their lives. But at the same time, they don't have the savings to pay for these big ticket items in one go. So if you look at the data, it makes sense why it's catching on so quickly. In studies, they found that adults under age 60, adults without a bachelor's degree, Black and Hispanic adults, and women were more likely to use BNPL. According to research from the Federal Reserve, they found that those struggling financially and those with fewer financial resources were more likely to use BNPL, perhaps reflecting liquidity or credit constraints. Individuals who reported that they were just getting by or finding it difficult to get by were nearly twice as likely to have used BNPL in the prior year as those who had said that they were doing okay or living comfortably. BNPL sells them the dream of flexibility. And back in the day, you might have put a $2,000 sofa on a payment plan. Now you can split a $40 burrito on DoorDash. That's right. Back in March, Klarna and DoorDash literally joined forces so you can buy your $40 food delivery on a payment plan, which is a completely new kind of concept. If you think about it, that is the ultimate sign of BNPL's cultural power. We're not just financing couches or washing machines anymore. We are financing lunch. And DoorDash tried to soften this blow by saying BNPL would only kick in for orders above $35. But still, the idea that you'd borrow money to buy a sandwich or two that will be gone in 15 minutes, that is peak 2025 energy. And I know inflation is brutal, rents are high, the price of groceries has increased over the past few years, but this idea of breaking things down into smaller chunks, even a burrito, makes sense on a human level. But when you zoom out, it's hard not to see a worrying trend. People reaching for debt to cover everyday essentials. When a tool that is meant for the occasional splurge becomes the crutch for your weekly takeout, you know something in the system is off. And that's exactly the slippery slope that BNPL companies and the rest of us are going to have to grapple with. Okay, so now we've established that BNPL provides instant gratification. That instant hit of, yes, I deserve this dopamine is hard to resist. But beneath that veneer is a reality that is a little bit messier. So here's the deal. BNPL is still a loan, and loans come with strings, or more specifically, late fees, penalties, and a growing sense of financial dread if you slip up. So let's talk about the numbers. According to a Lending Tree survey, 41% of BNPL users said that they paid late on at least one loan in the past year. That's nearly half. And what's even more eyebrow-raising is that almost a quarter of BNPL users have had 3 or more BNPL loans at the same time. It doesn't help that many BNPL users, about 62% according to LendingTree, believe that these loans are helping their credit score. But sorry to break it to you, until recently, most BNPL payments didn't even show up on your credit report. Now, this is finally starting to change thanks to FICO updating its scoring models. The payment company Affirm began sharing consumers' loan data with credit bureau Experian in April, but we'll get to that in a second. And unlike a credit card, BNPL lenders haven't historically offered the same protections. So if you bought something, hated it, returned it, and the store drags its feet on the refund, you're often still on the hook for those installment payments. In May 2024, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, highlighted potential risks, including inconsistent consumer protections compared to credit cards, data harvesting concerns, and the potential for consumers to become overextended. Some BNPL companies restrict your future purchases if you miss a payment, but they don't always help you dispute a bad charge like a traditional credit card company would. And we also have to talk about how normal BNPL is becoming for essential expenses: groceries, baby formula, pet food. These aren't luxury splurges. These are things that people need. And according to LendingTree, 25% of BNPL users have used these loans to buy groceries. Yes, groceries. This is the point where you have to squint and wonder, if people can't afford to pay for their groceries today, how will they pay for them next month plus catch up on the loan from last month? And this pattern is dangerous because it disguises debt as budgeting. In a perfect BNPL world, BNPL would be a helpful bridge, a way to responsibly spread out a big purchase. But what's happening is that people are using it as a lifeline, sometimes stacking multiple BNPL loans on top of each other and eventually getting buried. And it's not just about the money. There's a psychological cost to all of this too. The more you split up expenses, the harder it is to track what you truly owe. BNPL's seamless app-based systems make spending feel detached, frictionless, and practically invisible. You don't see a $800 balance on each statement every month. You see 4 $50 payments, 3 $20 payments there, a $35 lunch split up 4 ways. That mental disconnect is where the regret starts. And a LendingTree survey showed that nearly half of BNPL users have regretted making a BNPL purchase. So if you feel called out right now, don't worry, you are not alone. And so this is the part of the story where BNPL gets even messier, because now your credit score is coming to the party. Traditionally, buy now, pay later loans were kind of like Vegas. What happened in BNPL stayed in BNPL. You could stack up a dozen mini loans, pay them off or not. And as long as you weren't completely ghosting your payments, no one in the wider credit universe would find out. Before, the BNPL companies only cared about their own data. It was a closed loop where you could finance your entire skincare routine and still look like an angel to your bank. But of course, that was never going to last. In 2025, FICO announced that it would start incorporating BNPL data into some of its scoring models. And if you're into personal finance, you know that this is a huge shift. For decades, FICO scores were built on credit card usage, personal loans, mortgages, the traditional, heavily regulated stuff. Suddenly, they're bringing this new fintech Wild West into the fold. Why? Because lenders were flying blind. Imagine you're a bank about to give someone a car loan and their credit score looks squeaky clean. But behind the curtain, that same person has 7 active BNPL loans, 4 late payments, and a leftover Klarna burrito that they still haven't even paid off. That is a big risk, and lenders knew that they needed a clearer picture. So now, depending on your FICO model used, your BNPL purchases might affect your score. And how exactly depends on you. If you're responsible, you make every installment payment on time, and you don't overextend, it could actually help your credit profile a bit. FICO's early research showed that most people's scores only moved about 10 points in either direction after BNPL data was included. Now, all of this matters because your credit score isn't just a 3-digit number. It's basically your golden ticket to many huge milestones in life. Renting an apartment, buying a home, getting a car, and more, they all look at your credit. And let's not forget, BNPL does not offer the same built-in protections as a credit card. If you order something on your credit card and it never shows up, you can usually dispute it and freeze the payment while getting things sorted out. In fact, some BNPL companies still haven't fully figured out how to handle returns, refunds, or fraud protection in a consumer-friendly way. So if you're on the hook for a 4-installment payment plan and your package arrives in pieces, you might still owe the installments while you battle customer service. And because of how these payments work, automatic deductions from your checking account, it's easy to get caught short. If you forgot a BNPL installment was coming up or your paycheck hits late, you could overdraft your account, rack up more bank fees, and see your BNPL balance go into collections. So what looked like a harmless $20 pay in 4 could, if mishandled, damage your credit, your bank account, and your confidence. It's also worth noting that the CFPB has tried to get tougher rules in place to regulate BNPL lenders like they regulate credit cards, so that you'd have better dispute rights and transparency. But political shifts have slowed that down, leaving the average BNPL user in a weird gray zone. So now let's get to the brutally honest part for a second. Should you ever use buy now, pay later? And here's the reality. BNPL is not a bad practice. At its core, splitting up a purchase can be incredibly helpful, especially if you have a predictable income and a very clear budget. If you need a new washing machine but can't cough up the $800 today, breaking that into more manageable pieces might keep you from racking up credit card interest at a 20% APR. And that's a good thing. But there is a difference between using BNPL for a one-time big expense that you can pay off on time versus leaning on it every other week because your bank account is tapped. And if you find yourself paying in 4 for your morning coffee, I'm just going to say it, that is a sign that you need to reevaluate your entire budget. BNPL companies spend billions of dollars making their product feel fun, frictionless, and harmless. The pink fonts, the easy buttons, it's basically engineered to short circuit your financial caution. But at the end of the day, this is still debt. If you think twice before putting something on your credit card, you should think 3 times before breaking it into a BNPL payment. My rule of thumb is if you wouldn't go into debt for it, don't go into a BNPL situation for it. And as with any other financial tool, it all comes down to mindfulness. Ask yourself, would future me thank me for this? And if the answer is no, close the tab and walk away. If you can responsibly cover the payments and it's something meaningful, a major appliance, a carefully considered investment, then sure, take advantage of the installment plan. And if you do use BNPL, treat it with respect. Set reminders for the payments, track every active BNPL loan, know exactly when the money is coming out of your account, and keep it to one loan at a time whenever possible. And as a disclaimer, none of this is financial advice. This is just my personal opinion on the entire BNPL industry. And that is it for today's episode. It would mean the world to me if you could share this with a friend who's currently in their BNPL era, or just someone who might enjoy listening to this episode. And if you liked what you heard today, please leave me a rating or review, because that helps more people to find this podcast. And it genuinely makes my day. Remember, it's not free if you're still paying for it in 4 weeks. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Social Currency. I've been wanting to launch this show for so long. I can't tell you how excited I am to do this and how thrilled I am that you're actually here listening. It means the world to me. If you liked what you heard today, please rate and review the podcast, because it massively helps to support the work I do to bring the show to life. And if you want to keep up with the hottest business lore in real time, follow me on Instagram at Sammi Cohen Talks and subscribe to my newsletter, Social Currency, which is linked in the show notes. Social Currency is a production of Social Currency Media and Money News Network. The podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Sammi Cohen. Social Currency is produced by the Money News Network team. See you next time.